Our next video here, or next lecture, we're going to be continuing our section 8.2, factoring by grouping. And our next example, what we want to do is we want to see that when we group these first two and we group these second two, that I wouldn't be able to take anything out of these two terms. And then if I take a b out of here, there wouldn't be anything in common between the two of these. So this one requires that I actually do a little bit of rewriting. Now, all it takes is to do just a little bit of manipulation. And if you just flip these two around, so I write instead of 2a plus ab, if I write plus ab plus 2a and then plus 2b, I'll have another iteration of this. And then I can group here and I can group here. And from those first two, I can take out a b. And that's going to leave me with a b plus an a. And then out of the second two, I have a 2 in common. So I can take out a 2, and that leaves me with an a plus a b. And then again, I have to recognize the commutative property of addition. From this term down here and this term down here, you see that I have that a plus b in common. So I write that GCF, that binomial GCF, a plus b, and then I have b left in the first term plus a 2 left in the second term. And now you see my answer as a binomial times a binomial. So sometimes it's important that we realize we might have to reorganize these. You never have to get very carried away. Just flip-flopping the middle terms is all it takes. And there is only two different possibilities. It's either the way it's written, or if you flip-flop the middles, those are the only ones you have to check. All right, now moving on to our next one. Again, I'm going to group the first two, group the second two. And so when I do this, I see, gosh, it doesn't work, right? So these two grouped together, it's not going to factor anything out, and those two grouped together doesn't factor anything out. So I'm going to do that little trick. I'll write down the first one, and then I'll put the third term in as the second term, and then the second term is the third term, and then the last term stays place. Now you might be thinking, well, I would have put the xy and the negative x together and the negative 2 and the 2y together. Well, that'll work perfectly well in this case is 2. But what you need to remember is that when you order them differently, it's a different binomial that you'll factor out, and then your end result will still be the same. So it really doesn't matter. There's two different ways that it will factor correctly. So we're going to group these first two terms and these second two terms. Now out of the first two, I'm going to take the GCF of a y, and that leaves me with an x plus 2. Now this is another one of those instances that in the back of my mind I want to remember, positive, positive, right? Oh, those are both negatives, so I got to take out a negative, and I'm going to take out a negative 1. Sometimes that'll help us. And when I take out a negative 1 here, that makes that a positive 2, plus negative 1 out of there makes it a positive x. And now commutative property I have to recognize, right? X plus 2 is the same as 2 plus x, and now I have these two terms, and the GCF in those is x plus 2. And the GCF comes out and leaves me a y in the first term and a negative 1, or subtract 1 in the second term. And there we go with that factor. Now our next problem has a little bit of an interesting feature to it. This next problem is actually a GCF before we ever begin factoring. So you see all the way across here, you have a 3 in common, and you need to take those out. Not only do you have a 3 in common, look at this, you also have an x in common in each of these. And let me make sure that I didn't do a copy error on that one. Yep. So you have an x in common as well. So I'm going to take out that GCF first, 3x. And when I take out that 3x, that leaves me with 2xy. And then plus 5x. And then minus 3. So taking out the 3x here, we have a, not a 3y, but we have a 2y. And then out of here, we will have a minus, and that would leave me a 5. And now, in the next video, we'll finish this up by factoring by grouping.